Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one.
Hello, and welcome to the Expanders Club podcast. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Brooke, and we are so grateful to have you guys on this journey with us of expansion, evolution, self-discovery for your benefit and ours. And today's guest was a really fun one and is really special.
Lauren Bash, aka Lauren, which some of you may know her more familiarly on social media. She is a climate activist and optimist and an incredible storyteller. She does amazing skits. Her videos are just so entertaining, and she puts such a fun spin on getting her message out about climate activism. You know, so many different messages that she puts out, which we're going to talk about today. She's so passionate, and she just really makes it fun.
Yeah, and motivates you. Through her storytelling, her own passion, it's really motivating. And I think we walked away from this conversation ready to take some action.
We did indeed. Let's get started.
All right, guys, enjoy this one.
Lauren, it is so good to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
I was just thinking back to when we first met. Do you remember?
Well, depends what memory, because our first one goes way back to the 4th of July at 3 Arch.
Oh my God, which neither of us remembered because we must have both been, under the influence.
And our lovely, early 20-year-old selves at a beach
Different
party
times.
on the 4th of July. Yes.
Different times.
Yes.
No, I was thinking about the time we were meeting for Super Bowl, and we'd been introduced through mutual friends, and you were coming over. And I remember being so nervous because I was already following you and I was like a fangirl. And then when you showed up, we both had brought the same healthy snacks.
Yes.
And
I love
we
that.
talked the entire way through the Super Bowl only to stop to honor Rihanna, of course.
Yes.
And I was like, damn, this girl is so fucking cool and we're going to be friends.
Yes. And here we are 2 years later, besties.
Yeah. And the girl that you can just do everything with. Like, we swim, we run, we cook, we surf, we do Pilates together. You're just the all-round friend and just bring so much light to so many people's life. And even the people that know you and the people who don't, because if you follow Lauren on social media, you will see the light that she brings and how entertaining and amazing she is, which if you're part of the sustainability community or the plant-based community or anyone, you will follow Lauren, which, Lauren, tell us who you are.
Well, first off, Mads, that's who you are in the friend group, or just in the world, is you're an immediate friend to everybody. So I feel like you even read your own bio there, girl. The only reason I go and do those things is because you're the ringleader who's we're surfing, we're swimming, we're going to Pilates. And I'm like, damn, I should go do that. But you are the ringleader, girl.
To get to a place in life where the people we hang out with are a reflection of us, right? And hopefully it's in all the good ways.
True.
So
I'm a better person because of Mads, for sure.
Same here. We reflect each other. I love that.
100%.
It seems like you two have nailed that, and I love that. And want to touch on your content, Lauren, because you and I are new, and hopefully we'll be quick friends. But I've had the opportunity the past few days to do a dive into your content, and holy shit, you are you are incredible, and you are the true definition of a content creator. Your content is it's not only beautiful, but it's like intelligent, thoughtful. It's so professional. There's no filler there. There's no like meme fillers, or not that there's anything wrong with that. I love a good meme, but like every piece of your content is amazing and so thoughtful, and you walk away feeling something. So I'm so curious why your content's so great, and kind of the journey to getting to this place as this climate activist influencer.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the acknowledgement. Holy cow. I'm like pumped up now. This is going to be a great time. You guys are building me up.
It's all true.
I feel like I have to admit something. So I went to film school for undergrad, and I have like memories. It's actually really sweet. I have memories of like holding our family video camera and like filming my sister doing like runway shows down our hallway as kids. So I've like always been drawn to video storytelling. I was a theater kid. So like just storytelling and performance and things like that have always been part of my life. It's just been recently, as of like the past 2 years, that it's been a profession, but yeah, I was working. So I went to film school, and then I was working for a pretty big company for a long time, doing video production or as a producer, creating short form and social content. And so I guess that's why, if I was going to say like why my content is not shot on an iPhone, is because my background is in video production and video storytelling. Yeah.
So you were getting paid to do this content creation before you decided to start your own platform?
Well, I was working at Red Bull, and I was a producer, so creating all sorts of short form videos, sometimes long form, but mostly short form videos. So yeah, that was my career for a long time. And then I quit February 26, 2020. Oof. And I went to Argentina. I was like, this is the year. Like, I got my bonus. I chopped my hair off. I turned 28. I was like, this is it. I'm going to go backpacking in Argentina and go see my mom's family. And I'm going to go to Patagonia, and I'm going to go to the Amazon. And I had all these like bright-eyed plans before I went freelance. Because I was like, okay, then I'll be freelance and I'll work on corporate clients, commercial clients, and then work on my passion projects. And I was in Argentina when COVID hit, and my dad called. It was March 20th. And he was like, Lauren, if you're planning on coming home, you got to come home like now.
Wow.
You don't want to get stuck.
Oh my gosh.
And the next day, Argentina had closed their borders. So like, had I waited 24 hours, I wouldn't have made it home. Anyways, I got my shit rocked in the pandemic. I came back at LAX. Brooks and I were his boyfriend, girlfriend at the time. And he was like, thank God you're home. And I have this memory of like crying in the car, because I'm like, I quit my job and I moved out of my apartment, and I'm 28 years old. Like, what am I going to do? He's like, you're fine. You can like hang with me for a bit. You can quarantine, and then you can go stay with your mom. And I was like, I knew I was going to be freelance, but I didn't think it was going to be like this, because it was so hard to find work. Like, nobody was hiring. All my friends who were big time DPs or had been in film for a long time were on unemployment. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was obviously so privileged and so lucky to have mom as like the safety net, that I got to crash with her. So yeah, I was like living with my mom, and I downloaded TikTok just like everybody else did during the pandemic. And it was an election year. So there was obviously a lot of conversation around climate and the election and voting for a president who wasn't going to support offshore oil drilling and things like that. So I got really loud on the internet, and I was like, oh, I was essentially creating, like you said, Brooke, I was essentially creating social content for a corporation for a long time. And now I can just create it for myself. Yeah.
So cool.
Wow. I mean, so intense. I want to back up for a second, because what you said about your job, I think to a lot of people sounds like a dream job. Like Red Bull, you must have had a lot of opportunity to be super creative. And I feel like a lot of the content that they put out in the world is really fun and cool, and, not necessarily something I'm consuming, but I think to a lot of people it'd be like, you've made it. That's like an amazing job. Go ahead and stay with that and just like be happy for the rest of your life. Clearly that was not how you felt. Can you tell us about that moment or that time where you decided, cool, I've built this career and now I'm going to leave it all behind for something else, something bigger?
Yeah. I think Red Bull does a really good job of recruiting really brilliant and talented people to their team, because like you said, they're a global organization. Everybody knows what Red Bull is. They have some of the most like viral, not even viral, but like cultural shaping pieces of video ever, right? Like when Felix jumped from the stratosphere, you're like, everybody remembers this. So yeah, it's very like luring to come work for this like shiny, fancy company. So yeah, it was very fun. And I got to travel a ton. And, you know, Brooks used to always say, like, where are you going now? And I got to go to like Utah, New York, and Europe, and Miami, and like go work on all these projects and shoot all over the country. But simultaneously, I was like becoming really curious about climate change. And my entry into the climate space was after Trump was inaugurated, when I think a lot of people became radicalized because you didn't realize how much you cared about something until it was under extreme threat. And so for me, it was offshore oil drilling. I grew up in LA, always been like such a enthusiast and like lover, and had deep affinity for the ocean. And so that was my entry into the climate space. And so from 2016 to 2020, that little voice in my head kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I was like, wait, do I want to be working for a corporation who's not only like not doing something that like ultimately involves conservation or awareness or like something in some matter, but is actually causing like quite a bit of damage? And, you know, like Red Bull is a privately owned company. Everything is made in Europe. And at the time, I think now they also make it in the US. At the time it was made in Europe and it was imported to the US. And I didn't drink the product anymore. And so I think that was when I was learning about intuition. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so what I recommend everybody do that I started doing was anytime I got like a trigger and I was like, oof, I would screenshot it and put it on my desktop of like reasons to quit. And it was like everything from like sexist things that were said in meetings to like single-use plastic that they were like essentially requiring accounts to use when serving Red Bull, to like us being driven by sales numbers when we were the content team. And I was like, okay, these are all triggers to like listen to intuition. And so I think by the end, my only regret, even 2020 being as rough as it was, my only regret was that I hadn't quit sooner.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I love that exercise, but at the same time, isn't it so funny how this voice in our head or our soul, whatever you want to call it, like knows the answer. And now it's like trying to find proof points to convince like what our logical mind that this is a good idea. Yet had you listened to that voice and been like, yep, that's right, peace out, you wouldn't have had to gather. I mean, it's such a great exercise because we all need that reinforcement, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of proof to like listen to that voice immediately. But just so interesting. Like you knew, but still let me collect all the information and like sit in this misery for a little bit. How miserable can I get? You know?
Yes. Yeah. Well, then things would come like, oh, but your bonus, or like a really fun trip, or the end of your party, or things. And I'd be like, go look at the desktop. Go look at the folder. I'd be like, don't fall for it, Lauren. Like, I was like,
it's not enough.
Yeah. Is it one more year?
So it's 2020. You've quit your job. Life is upside down for everyone, but for you, you have no money, no clear career path, because all your friends who are working in that field don't have, all of your contacts are kind of out the door, right? They don't have jobs either. You take to TikTok. Were you thinking, hey, I'm going to make a career out of being an influencer and content creator, or were you just ready to share your voice and have some fun? What was the mindset?
I think it was the latter. Like, I didn't think it was necessarily going to be something that was like something I could pursue as a full-time career. I always thought I was going to be producing. I also edit. So I thought I was going to produce and edit and then also simultaneously create my own content, but that I didn't think it was going to be my full-time job. It was like something I was pursuing on the side. And it's something, you know, it's funny. I always tell people now who are trying to get into content, I'm like, what do you feel like you need the world to know? Because that's what will motivate you to create content. Yep. And I feel like so often, like you said, like these filler posts, or people are like, I have to post something today. And there's this pressure to post, but I'm like, but if it's done out of obligation, then you're not like, but I need you to know something. And I think in 2020, I was like, I need you to know, a lot of people like, I need you to know something. And so that was ultimately my motivation, was just like to inform and educate and inspire and engage people about climate change, and voting for a president who wasn't going to like roll back all of these different EPA restrictions and
Mm-hmm.
incentivize all of this drilling. And so that was my um, like guiding light, I guess. Um, and then there came a time. So I was still like taking freelance clients. I was working for a like vegan meat company, doing some like consulting and helping them build their online audience in the US, and still taking like side gigs here and there, while also like working with brands and creating my own original content and stuff. But then there came a time when I saw it start to flip. This is late 2021. And I was like, oh, this is when it becomes a full-time job.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
And um the same triggers I was feeling at Red Bull, when I was like, I'm not motivated by sales. It's never something that's going to like light me up. And ultimately, when you're working, my experience was when I was working in house somewhere, that was supposed to be the motivation. And I just wasn't inspired by it. And so again, those triggers of like, I don't want to be in these sales meetings. I'm not trying to. It's funny because you like influencers or content creators are essentially like online salespeople. But it became a point when it felt like pushy and about volume and all of these things, instead of just like naturally talking to a friend about something that I
Yep.
like and that I enjoy, and you can purchase it or not, you know,
Yep.
which just isn't how sales works. So anyways, there became a point when it started to flip, and I was like, okay, I think I can do this full time. And I also think that was part of it too. What's the saying? Like you have to, or burn the boat, or like you have to throw your hat over the wall, or you have to burn the boat. And I was like, I won't know until I do it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so quitting that job, I think, was like the side gigs and the freelance stuff. I was like, I can do this, but I won't know until I really try, you know?
And that's a really hard step to take, and a really scary step to take. But yes, it's almost like this split energy into dabbling in all these things, and a big portion of things that you don't really care about, versus putting all your energy and
Yeah.
focus into the one thing that you do care about, and
Yeah.
trusting the universe, believing in yourself. Like that's a combination of a lot of things. So there
Yeah.
had to be a lot of muscles you were exercising at that time to like get you to that moment where you were like, yep, I believe in myself, I trust the universe, I'm going for
Yep.
this.
Yep. And like, I also tell other freelance folks too, I'm like, yo, I was taking any effing gig I could get on Upwork. Like, I was like, it
Yeah.
wasn't like I was like, oh, I just want to be a full-time content creator and I'm going to like quit myself. I literally did anything I could to like bring in some income. And that's just freelance for you. That's like part of the dance. And it wasn't stuff I was inspired by or motivated by, but that's free. I was like, but it's a short-term project and it has a finish line, and I can show up and do my work and like get compensated. And that was it. I did like customer testimonials for like a law firm. I was doing anything I
That's
could to like
incredible.
get work. And I was on Upwork and Fiverr and all these things, just trying to find work. So that's also part of it too, is like, you gotta, you gotta try. This isn't, there wasn't like entitlement of like, oh, I have to be a full-time content creator. It's like, I'm working my ass off to make this happen. And then, like I said, something started to flip.
I see that though, Lauren. So many people, I feel like, look at your life from the outside and they're like, oh my gosh, what a dream. She gets to work for these amazing brands. She gets to go to trips to Costa Rica. She gets paid to live this kind of dream life. And I know that, speaking to you, you are like, okay, yeah, but this is a job. Like, I'm waking up every day and having to turn on and create, film, like get in front of the camera and show up and self-motivate. Like, how is that for you?
Well, I feel like, to be completely honest, and I should say, like, if any of the partners I get to work with to create sponsored content for are listening to this, I'm very grateful for their work and their belief in me, and the way that it's like an energy exchange, right? Where they're like, we believe in what you're creating when you're not paid. So
Mm-hmm.
that's essentially what they're buying, right? They're like buying this airtime on my channel of like, here's Lauren who's talking about climate change and climate action and community engagement, community involvement, all these things, plastic pollution. And then she's also essentially like integrating one of our products or services into her content programming, right? Like a TV channel or something. I guess that's my background in like TV and film, talking for you. But I feel like my sponsored content is like the least exciting part of my job. You know, like I remember saying last January, I was like, if I could find a way to never make an ad ever again, I would. Like I'm
Wow.
so much more fulfilled and inspired and excited about what I'm saying when it's not ultimately like a deliverable for somebody else
Yeah,
that's like potentially contributing to like the sale of a product. I'm like, that's so lame. That like that goal of this is to like sell something. But if it's like to get someone to go join a community group or like to like go check out their local community composting or to like go register to vote, maybe because I'm like motivated by impact.
Mm.
totally.
And if it's, and don't get me wrong, I work with so many amazing organizations too that are nonprofits or environmental orgs or like water conservation orgs, where there is like an impact driven outcome as well.
Well, and I think that coming from a place of, a brand, owning a brand and being in that brand space for over a decade, something that I've always thought is interesting and curious your thoughts on this, like we brands can be a catalyst for change and a tool for change as well. And by exposing these brands that are better to people, it allows them to be able to participate and do something. You can shout at the top of your lungs about a certain topic, but for most people, if there's not an accessible solution, they're not able to make change. And I think that's what brands have an opportunity to do, is to give people access to making change.
100%. Yeah.
And I think your job, I totally get what you're saying, but if you look at it holistically, like you need both, right? In order for you to have the time and space to create this content that you're so passionate about, you need the money to be able to support yourself and do that. And so I totally get that, but I think that your stuff comes across and feels so authentic, and you're showcasing brands that I know that you are very specific about, and it really is a gift to people to give them that access and that tool and that knowledge without them having to do a ton of research, because that's often kind of where the buck stops, is like, okay, I know I should do something, but like I don't have time to sit down and research what are the best tools to
Yeah.
be able to do that.
Well, I think
And Lauren, you go.
that's the like responsibility part of being a like mission driven or impact driven content creator on the internet. So you also have a responsibility, which just makes it difficult because there are influencers on the internet who don't have like an ounce of vetting process. They're like, I'm getting paid, this is my job, I'm gonna promote this product, and that's it. And it could be like tested on animals or made in a sweatshop or be like exported or imported from anywhere in the world, like covered in single use plastic, harmful chemicals, whatever, and they're like doing their job. But the difference of like an ad you see on the TV versus like an ad of an influencer essentially endorsing something is there is an element of you saying like, I'm endorsing this. And if you have
Yeah.
a community, they trust you and they respect you. And so I don't take that lightly. And I've made mistakes in the past where like I've said yes to campaigns that I shouldn't have. And even when I thought it was like the right thing, my community will like, put me in check very quickly. And it does make it tough because I would like love to say yes to everything, and it would make like supporting my work a lot easier if I could say yes to everything. But if I'm going to stand up here and say like I care about a future where like everyone has access to clean air, clean water, where we're treating our soil and our land with respect, like all these things, then that does put a like a vetting process on the brands that I partner with, and do they like check all these boxes essentially.
I want to know
Tell us
those
more.
brands that you've said no to.
name them. No. Tell us more about that moral line and how you walk it and how it has served you or maybe been difficult.
I feel like, okay, I think in the climate space, obviously there's a lot of conversation around systems change. And you just said it too, Brooke. Like, I know you're very passionate about regenerative agriculture and we talk about fixing the food system. And you're like, yes, we can all agree, right? We need a new food system. We need to steward our land well. And like, it's all interconnected, right? And so I think the more I learn about systems change, the more I'm like so aware that like these systems are rotten, and they serve and protect a very small group of people at the top who continue to make billions and take care of all their friends, right? Investors or shareholders, whoever, to protect them and their pensions and their like wealth, while a lot of people at the bottom are like getting really sick from it getting really sick, or like we'll live in poverty, right? And so the more
Yeah.
then it's all interconnected. And so I think, I guess with age and maturity, or perhaps just like learning more and more, and like these systems are rotten and they're broken, and they protect some while like really put others at disadvantage. And so I think that's where the my moral ick sometimes comes in, of like, yes, some brands do things well, but it's also within a broken system. You know, like the biggest one we talk about, or not the biggest, but one we talk about a lot in sustainability, is like the linear life cycle. Take, make, waste, right? You like extract something from the earth, you make something from it, and it ultimately ends up in a landfill. But everything in nature is cyclical. So we talk about like the circular economy. Things, how can you like take something from the earth, make a product from it, and then at the end of its life cycle, it can return back into the system.
Yep.
And there's been so many amazing organizations who have shown how they can do that. Like it's like a carpet company, I think it's called Interface Carpets, and he did it. He showed how he made these carpets in like square patches for massive commercial buildings. So when like a part was ruined, they just pulled out the square, replaced the square. And he was like, his name's Ray Anderson. He has an amazing TED Talk. You gotta check it out. But just showed how like, if I can do it as a carpet company, you can do it as
Right.
whatever company, you know? And I was
No
like,
one thinks, yeah.
And
no
so,
one thinks carpet and is like, okay, how do we make these more sustainable?
right, or like, yeah, that's going to be a sustainable company, right? And there are brands who are doing things with the right intent, when they're like, we're a certified B Corp and we pay our people well, and we have all these different elements of compliance where we're making sure that we pass all these checks. But I'm like, but the fact that you have to jump through every single hoop to do something right, when like this is like the biggest indicator is you don't say something is not organic in the grocery store, or that it's not
Right.
that it's tested on animals, right? Like you have to qualify for those badges or those certifications if they are, right? Or women owned, right? I'm like, it just shows you how the system is broken, that you don't have to indicate those things on a package or on an item if it's not. So I think that's probably where my moral friction comes in, more of like, how do we change these systems so it's not so hard for someone to say I'm doing the right thing, you know? Because we talk about access, who has access to these things, who can afford these things, who has the time. Like it's all
that's almost the biggest broken part, you know, as an organic women-owned business. Like you have to pay for all of those things.
Yes.
Like, and we pay sometimes for some of our raw materials, we pay triple the amount because it's organic. So that's, you know, you are so right. And the food system is one that I'm more knowledgeable on than others just because I've been in it, but it's so broken. And something you said before we went fully down this rabbit hole triggered me thinking about a post that you shared about the state of California suing big oil corporations.
Oh yeah.
And so could you share, I just thought the information in that post was so interesting and heartbreaking at the same time, but such a good representation of kind of what we're up against. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So big oil is not dumb. You know, they're like some of the wealthiest industry on the planet, right? Is oil. And so they knew, big oil has known about climate change since the 70s. And they actually had a specific test or case study run to understand what is the impact of burning fossil fuels on the climate in the 70s. Scientists assigned to it and everything. They literally burned the evidence. They were like, oh shit, burn the evidence in the 70s. So there's been whistleblowers who have come out since and were like, hey, we were the scientists, or like we were related to the firm who did this. Big oil knew. And so they've been covering up their lies for 50 something years. And so the issue, or when we're talking about California suing big oil, well, now we all know that these like extreme weather events are exacerbated by climate change. Climate change is caused by the earth heating up. The earth is heating up because we're burning fossil fuels, which the best explanation I heard is like, it's like putting a blanket on the earth. And so all the heat, all the carbon, everything that attracts heat is trapped inside the atmosphere instead of being released back to space. And so we know that like every big global report that comes out says burning fossil fuels is causing climate change. So big oil has known that. And so now when we see these extreme weather events, let's say there's a flood in Florida, and it's caused by climate change, right? Or sea level rise is
Mhm.
caused by climate change. Big oil's not paying for that. It's the state or the city, right? Is paying $800 million to raise the sidewalks or to install pumps or something like that to like get rid of this excess water. And so what California did is when we see wildfires and droughts or storms or all these things that are exacerbated by climate change, you're saying, big oil, this is your tab. You're
Yep.
responsible for
Yep.
this. And so, because you've known since the 70s that this is your responsibility, that all of these extreme weather events are exacerbated by the damage you're causing. And so this is like spicy that Newsom and California is suing. And I think it was whatever happens in California trickles to the rest of the country and Oregon. Oregon's always like pretty radical too. But it's cool because we'll start to see this. Actually, I should say California joined, I think it was 40 different municipalities because there are some that maybe not on the state level, but that are at like the city or local level.
Mhm.
That are also suing big oil because they're saying like, we don't want our tax dollars. Like, how the heck does this make sense? The math is not mathing. I'm paying taxes to clean up a wildfire
Your mess.
that you
Yeah.
caused. Yeah. How does that
Well,
make sense?
it's just
Wow.
it's another visual of how the system that you're talking about is so broken. You know, one of the pieces of the system, our tax dollars go to clean up their messes, but our tax dollars also go to subsidize. Our tax dollars
Yeah.
also go to subsidize oil and gas
Yeah.
companies. And so, yeah, what's your pup's name?
Sorry, Sunny. 1
Sunny.
second.
Sunny. What are you getting
Sunny.
excited about?
She's like, I hate
She's
subsidies too.
she's feeling it about.
I know. She's
But big oil.
pissed and
Sunny doesn't like it.
wants to do something about it. So all of this said, we can go down a million rabbit holes of the systems, how they're broken, how, you know, it feels so frustrating and how like major change is needed to break these systems down. How does someone have this information and stay motivated, stay upbeat, find hope?
Yeah. I guess it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, like, what do you need the world to know? And I feel like for
Yep.
me, like, I've always wanted a family, and my family means everything to me. And I've always wanted to be a mom. And I'm sure Brooke too, it's like the second you're a mom, there's like something that switches or changes. And you're like, oh, there's a different purpose of why I'm here. And someone else's future I'm fighting for too. And
Absolutely.
perhaps too, because my mom's family is in Argentina, and you see how the global south is going to be like disproportionately and extremely impacted by global temperatures rising. Like parts of the world will just be uninhabitable. You cannot live there. I think the definition of uninhabitable is like you can't stand outside for more than like
Wow.
20 minutes or something
Oh,
because of the
no.
heat. Yeah. It's a mixture of the heat and the humidity. Like it's called something, a swab something. I don't know. They test the atmosphere. You can't stand outside. It's too hot. Your body will overheat. You can't cool down. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And but like, not to be dark, but that's also the truth is like climate scientists are saying it's not if, but when. And so when you're like, okay, well, then that's my motivation is not to only advocate for my future children and like hopefully grandchildren, but also like the people who that's their lived experience every day, you know, and where is the like collective humanity in this? And I have a responsibility because, you know, my siblings on earth are going to be immediately impacted by extreme heat and lack of access to water, or they cannot grow food or become climate migrants and are forced to flee. And so when I think of, I guess it's purpose, like what ultimately drives you is you're like, oh, because this will be the fight of not only my lifetime, but like every lifetime that comes after this, but also rooted in optimism because I know we can do this. And like, because we don't have a choice. Like if
We
we're
don't have
going
a
to
choice.
survive, we don't have a choice. And like, you get it. You see it, especially, I think with food, it's so personal because it's something you make a decision about several times a day. But when you see what's possible and when you see the goodness of it, right? Food probably too, because you have access to a local farmer's market, or you can see like what food looks like even in your own backyard. And you're like, oh wow, this is what's possible. And I therefore have like a taste of optimism of what the future could be. fossil fuels are probably a bit tougher because you're like, okay, what is like what is my EV or like my heat pump or my solar? You could for sure if you're a homeowner, like taste it. But yeah, perhaps that's where like the optimism is birth, but you're also like, but I do not have a choice. I was actually talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they're like, there's this like arc of knowing something and then believing something. Like you're like, I know it, I get it, I know that, right? I know that. But then when you like full embody it of like, oh, I get that now. And then like the third part of that evolution is like, and I don't have a choice.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's no longer something that I'm choosing. Am I going to do that or not? You're like, I don't have a choice. And so I think I guess that was yeah, we don't have a choice. Like the science is obvious. We have a responsibility for our like shared humanity on earth to create a thriving future where everyone has access to live, you know?
Well, and it's not like we're talking about something that's centuries away from happening.
Oh no.
Like we're seeing it happen right in front of us. And I think that's the scary thing. And also when you talk about climate deniers or people that just aren't motivated to do anything, or I've even seen people, and you see this with, it's funny, climate and food kind of, as we know, like do go hand in hand, whether people fully realize it or not. But I see this in food, and I see it in climate, where people are almost like doing the opposite is cool. Like eating bad food is cool. Like showing photos on Instagram of like going through McDonald's drive-through and getting like a diet soda would be the equivalent in food to people showing off like not caring about the little things that individuals can do. Why can't we get out of our own way? We can't. Okay, we need to help ourselves. That's a leap because we can't even get out of our own way. Why do you think that is?
Okay, so we talk about like the system being rotten and broken. Like when we talk about big oil covering up the science, right, or covering up the evidence, like these are massive corporations with like deep pockets. So even when you talk about like lobbying, which is done a lot in the food system too, right? Like big ag has deep pockets and spends a lot of money to make sure that elected officials don't pass certain laws with the farm bill or things like that. And it's the same with oil and gas, right? Like the amount of millions of dollars that oil and gas spends on lobbying every year. And I've seen them, y'all. Like I've been in Sacramento, I've been in DC, and you see these suits, like these guys walking out of these meetings, unlimited funds, right? And say like, what essentially like, what would it take? Name your price. What would it take to make sure that this isn't passed? It's wild. It's wild. And so I think the force here, like the enemy, is like very clear. And I think it's really easy, actually, to what you said about like us as individuals. I think it's really easy, especially when we're early in our climate journey, to like point the finger at each other. Shame on you for not caring. Shame on you for not trying harder. Shame on you for drinking out of plastic or not buying organic or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I have this joke now that like every time you shame someone for their carbon footprint, Jamie Dimon makes $1 million. And Jamie Dimon is the CEO of Chase Bank, and he's invested like $484 billion in fossil fuels since the Paris Agreement. Man. And so you're like, oh no, babe, it's not me or you and our plastic straws. Like there are very few people to be held accountable here. And our energy of like criticizing one another for our footprint, our plastic and our diet and our this is like so ineffective. And I think that was my intention last year with making content like so inviting. Like it doesn't matter if you're brand new to this and you want to learn more. It doesn't matter if you're an expert. Like we need everybody part of this movement. And it's not going to happen if you feel like you have to be this perfect environmentalist or a vegan or drive an EV or walk or not have a car or whatever. Like that's so not it, And so it's really dangerous when we start like pointing the finger at one another of like, you should care more and you should do this. And it's like, it's not it. Like I acknowledge you exactly where you're at. I challenge you to play a bigger game. I feel like in LA, this is my observation. And I actually have like a pretty spicy skit coming out soon about like the air one night.
Ooh. I'm excited.
Okay, I'll tell you. So,
oh my God, yes.
This is my issue. In LA, in Venice, you have people who like buy organic and they don't drink out of plastic, or now they don't drink out of plastic because they understand there's microplastics in it and they don't want to harm their health. But their activism stops with them, right? I eat organic and I do this because it's good for me and it's good for the planet. And I'm like, if your activism stops with you, it's too small. Or it's not activism. Like, you're only looking out for yourself. And if you have the access and privilege to afford an $18 smoothie at Erewhon, you have the access and an opportunity to advocate for a localized and just food system. And there are so many amazing orgs in LA, in the greater LA area, who are creating food access and food justice, and who are trying to create more opportunities for everyone to have access to fresh, healthy food instead of those who can afford an $18 smoothie at Erewhon. And so Erewhon is beautiful and it's amazing, and they're really good at creating access to healthy and organic food for those who can afford it. But like, why doesn't Erewhon subsidize their food or put it on like a sliding scale and put it in perhaps lower income areas? So if it's truly about making everybody have access to healthy food, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's my beef. Your activism stops with you. It's too small. That's my bubbling message for this year, is like inviting people who are so close. Like, you've got the right idea. You can play a bigger game. You know?
Yeah, I love that. What are a few of the, like, what are your top 2 organizations helping give access to people in, I guess, in Southern California, because that's where you're based and probably have the most experience?
Yeah. So there's 3 in LA that are amazing. One is, I just heard about them. They're called Crop Swap LA, and they turn like front yards into like food forests. It's amazing.
Cool.
Mostly hydroponic and then some in soil. And then they sell it as subscription to people in the community.
That's
so they're
so
essentially turning like lawns or cement driveways into food forests, and then creating a subscription box, CSA box, for the community. So that's Crop Swap.
Oh, I love that.
There's Alma, which, Mads, I know I told you about so many times, but it's a urban farm community garden in Compton, and they have a farm stand open twice a month, and it's extremely affordable. So therefore it's accessible to the community, because farmers markets can also be very expensive. And then there's this like element of elitism. Yeah, I want to shop organic and local, but I can't afford it. So Alma makes it accessible and affordable. And then the last one's called Supermarket. It's my friend Olympia. And I don't know if I think she's opening in the spring. And it's an organic produce market in South LA. And that's it. It's creating essentially like an Erewhon, supermarket Erewhon in South LA, where Erewhon doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's amazing. Excited to see. Yeah. We'll link all of those in the show notes, but I'm excited to dig in myself. And you're right. The individualism it's the first necessary step, right? Like, I want to do my part. Maybe then asking yourself, well, why do you want to do your part, right? Is it because you care? Is it because you want to post on Instagram? You're using the sustainable brand, or you're doing this or not doing that? Is it to just let go of guilt? And all of those things are fine. That's a great starting point. But like, the time is now to do something bigger, and have a bigger impact. Yeah. And I love that message.
Yeah. And you giving those examples, Lauren, of those local ways in LA that we can shop, that we can get involved, who we can support. That's just so helpful, because I find it so overwhelming when we speak about like the bigger oil companies. It's like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know where to start. And it's just like, at least like going a little bit beyond my like day-to-day of just doing my standard buying organic, etc. Like stepping up and going in, volunteering on the weekend, gardening and planting vegetables for the local community and planting plants, just like all of these things. Like in downtown on like, I think a Friday morning, they have these markets on that they sell all of the produce that would have gone to waste, and it's significantly cheaper. You can get big boxes of mangoes, like 20 mangoes for $20, and you can get like all of these bananas that are like, they're imperfect produce essentially, that didn't make it to the grocery store shelves, and you can go and buy it in bulk for cheap. And it's like, okay, what are other ways that we can just help like food waste, etc. And make things more accessible?
I love that, Maddie. I didn't know that, but that's an interesting example too of the system, the solutions being inside of a broken system, like who that needs access to food has the availability to go to a Friday morning market downtown.
Well, it's like at 5
Oh,
a.m.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's all interesting. And I have like something that I'm guilty of that I need to admit to Lauren. And, it's
No
something
guilt
I've
here.
heard.
No guilt. No
Something that
shame.
I've heard
Safe
some of your
space.
content around, and, maybe you have some advice for me here, but pre-child, pre-baby, I was very thoughtful with my shopping. Pretty much did all my food shopping at the farmer's market. If I was going to buy something from a brand, I would go directly to the brand and buy it. And I am really sad to admit, probably about 3 weeks into having a baby, I gave in to Amazon.
Yeah.
And Amazon is like kind of my number one search engine for things now. And I like guilt myself around it every time, but it's so easy and I need the stuff immediately. And, there's all the stories we can tell. What conversations are you having with your community around something like that?
I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier about shame. Like, I'm never gonna shame you, especially a mom. Like, I've never been a mom. How would I know? Like, I'm never gonna shame anybody for using Amazon. We still have a Prime account. And like
Yeah.
this goes back to these like gargantuan rotten systems and like who is the villain here? Like, if I used to be able to go find a cord or a battery for my camera at like a local Sammy's camera shop in LA, then I would go do that. But like, because of these massive systems that continue to prioritize profit over people and small business and like the local community where we're looking out for each other, right? Then yeah, then it's going to be an Amazon to like go get a new battery for my camera. Or like, I was trying to make fermented veggies the other day, and you know how you have to have like a glass weight on to keep it in the brine. Nowhere, couldn't find Rainbow Acres, can't find it. And I was like, okay, well then I'm gonna buy it on Amazon. And I'm like, but it's not. This is like, are you gonna go to 9 different shops to try to find this thing? And then you go back to like, who has time, access, resources, availability to go do these things, to go find this impulsive online shopping. I think we can all like take responsibility where it's needed, because if you can afford to impulsively online shop, then you are in a place of privilege where like that's a habit you could break, right? Same with like wasting food. It's like if you're over buying food and then not eating it, like that's also a habit that you can nurture of like, maybe I need to buy less at the grocery store, or maybe I need to like give it away or freeze it before it goes bad, right? These are things that we can. But like, if I'm a mom and I need my older sister just had a baby too, and she's on Amazon all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna shame you.
I
But
know.
these are like the result of a broken system where this stuff it's meant to be like extremely easy and convenient.
If all the moms just stopped using Amazon, it would go down in 30 seconds. Maybe 2024 is the year moms unite to bring down Amazon,
or like
change the system.
This is what we were talking about yesterday too, and when I talked a lot of when you talk about what's the conversation in my community, I think this is like the year, and from every year forward, of like the local community being the solution to everything. So like, Western individualization teaches us that I'm in my box and I like operate in my box, in my car, in my job, right? I'm in these like containers. But like indigenous communities and like the first humans and like pretty much everyone outside of the West operates in community and community reliance and community organizing and resilience, right? And so if I need a ladder to go hang up something, I only need it one time.
Right.
Western suburbia culture will teach me I need to go to Home Depot and go buy a ladder and keep it in my garage. But like every other culture outside of Western mindset will teach us like, no, somebody's got a ladder in the community, just go borrow it and then bring it back. You only need one time, right?
I love that.
Dude, I love bringing more attention to that idea. And what area of life is it not useful in? Becoming a mother really shone a light on that for me, of how secluded we are in general, but definitely during that time, those early times for me, our family's on the opposite coast. I didn't have a lot of friends at the time that were going through the same thing that I was. And you think about these other cultures where it's like every woman in the community is showing up and helping with the baby and getting the mom to take, giving the mom a break and giving the mom rest, or even like physically helping nurture the mom. And it's so different now.
Yeah.
And with everything, when I first started my company and we would sell at the farmer's market, there was this barter system, this unspoken barter system that went on with the vendors. And it felt so much more fulfilling than getting money for my product, swapping my products with another vendor for their products. Like that felt so incredible. And I do think that we all are craving more community. And I don't think we fully know where to start or what that looks like. But it sounds like we should keep an eye on your content, because it sounds like you'll be helping guide us there.
I mean, we all have it. It's like it's like innately in us. I read something the other day that was so beautiful. It was like, we all started as activists. We all were like birthed as activists, because to be an activist just means you're caring about the well-being of like something greater than yourself, right? Another person or the planet or animals, right? You're born with that innate empathy. But then through like white supremacy and colonization and capitalism, you're taught like, you don't care about those things, look out for yourself. Me and this like nuclear family, right? Like don't worry about it. The world's a hard place, but like kids like they have it in them. Like, oh, so much care, so much love, so much empathy. We're taught through time that like to be sheltered and focus on yourself and everyone out for them on their own. And so I think the healing is like leading with empathy and community dependency first.
Yeah. And we're all feeling that. And so I'm excited to see, I know that you both know, because we've talked about it, like by this point, anyone listening will know that I fully believe in this. Like the big astrological shift that just happened is really, I think it's really going to open us up to these ideas around community and gathering and bringing our power together. And I'm excited to see where it all goes and the changes that happen.
Me too. Even just like a challenge of meeting your neighbors. Like, go meet your neighbors and ask them like, what do you need? Can I help you? Or can I borrow something?
I feel so lucky. I literally posted this on my Instagram this morning. We got a basket delivery from our neighbor next door, and she'd picked all of these like fruit off her tree of just like oranges and limes and delivered them. And I have the best relationship with my neighbors. Literally last week I was sitting at my desk and I was like, gosh, I'm hungry and I can't be bothered making dinner. And I get a message from my neighbor being like, hey, do you want any veggie soup, Mads? We've got leftovers. I was like, what? Like they every time they just like knock on our door and they'll come bring us like leftover food or anything, like fresh fruit, flowers. And we just like, it's just this like beautiful relationship we have with our neighbors on either side. And it brings me so much joy. Like I have spent Saturday nights with my neighbors who are in, their older years, and I'm hanging out with them on a Saturday night, sitting around their fire having chats, because I'm like, you guys are so interesting. This feels so much more rewarding than anything else.
The friend I was talking to about the like evolution of knowing something, believing something, then I don't have a choice. He said something so true. He was asking his mom, like, did you know your neighbors when I was a kid? And she was like, oh, we like didn't lock our door. Like we were always, she goes, every weekend we were at one of the neighbors' houses, and like the kids were playing in the backyard. Like the moms may have been cooking something, like everybody was helping each other with house projects and chores, like, of course. And so I feel like we can't be remiss to acknowledge that with like, devices on our person all the time. Like we have less interpersonal connection because we're all digital now, right? Connecting at any time with someone else anywhere. But it also has created this like shield. Like we have less dependency on our neighbors because now we're on our phones, or on the internet. And because I remember that too, like my neighbors we carpooled with, and we like went to school together. We took the bus together, and we were always going to neighbors' houses and things like that. And I don't think it's the same anymore. And when you look at this like epidemic of loneliness with young people too, it's really sad. And so I think this evolution we're talking about too, Brooke, this shift, I think it will also be like a new learned behavior, or perhaps just like completely cutting the cord with like these things. Because I don't know if that exists dependency on this, you know?
True.
Here's
And
a
I think
challenge.
ooh, yes, go.
I challenge everyone who's listening to go and knock on your neighbor's door. If you don't know them, introduce yourself to your neighbor on either side
Yeah.
and offer them something, anything, and just like start to create that relationship, because that's just how it starts. Just like saying hello,
Yeah.
waving in the driveway, just like passing by. Like that's all it takes is to start that
Yeah.
relationship. You never know what can come of it.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what May Day is? Like May the month, May Day.
May 1st?
Yes.
I don't
Tell
know
us.
what it
Okay.
is.
Well, maybe I'm sure it's a thing that happens in the US, but we did it when we were kids and I loved it. And I did it a few years ago in this condo complex we were living in, but you basically take flowers or like a little basket of flowers and you put them on someone's porch or hang them on their doorway and you knock on the door and you run off. So you get no recognition. You don't leave a note or anything. You get no recognition for leaving them, but they open the door to these wonderful flowers from someone. And I loved it as a kid. And a few years ago, I did it with my neighbors in my condo complex. And it just like the feeling it gives you is it's so incredible. And just to know like there's this like fun mystery behind like making someone's day. And they're like, what? Who did this? This is amazing. They're not expecting it. And so that is like what you're supposed to do on May Day, which is May 1st. I don't know if anyone still does it, but yeah.
Oh, we are bringing that
it's
back.
Really fun. Let's do it. Absolutely. May Day. I'll see you ladies in Venice.
Yes.
We'll go around knocking on doors.
So sweet. I feel like people in the Midwest would do that. Do we do that in California? Not as friendly out here.
We do now. We do now. Lauren, you're working on something that you shared with us that's really cool, that involves plant-based eating and your dad. And I'd love for you to share that with everyone.
Yeah. So my dad, James Neil Faree, he'd always had poor health. Like he got a stent put in his heart when I was 12. He had like jaw cancer when I was in college. He had smoked cigarettes and had just eaten like a textbook American diet. And just like the consequences of eating a textbook American, highly processed, highly animal derived diet was just like a lifetime of diet related health diseases and complications. And so I'd always feared for my dad's life because his health was always in poor health. So
yeah.
But I'd watched the films, I'd been plant-based since I was 18. And so I'd watch all the films. Anytime something new would come out, I'd be like, this is amazing. Try to get him to watch it, read it. No. And then you're tired. And I was like, Dad, there's this month called Veganuary. You eat plant-based for 30 days. And it's this global movement starting in Europe. It's here now. Let's do it. And I'll share it on my TikTok and it'll be amazing. And he was so hesitant at the beginning. And I was like, come on, let's do it. So he came and the first video we posted had like 800,000 views. And that's because I think so many people, they either saw themselves in it as a boomer or you saw yourself in it as your parent. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this with my parents. And so he did it for 30 days. He ate plant-based. We grocery shop together. We meal prep on the weekends. We even would try he was like, I want to go try the Beyond Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was like, let's do it. Like he was trying everything. And I was like, whatever it is, so you're not eating meat. Like, this is awesome, Dad. And I know a lot of people have a lot to say about the like vegan proteins and stuff, but if you're eating like a very meat heavy diet and you're trying to transition, like these are wonderful entry point products to get people to eat less meat. And like cholesterol only comes from animal derived food. And the fact that he was still eating these, anyways, he went plant-based for 30 days. He lowered his blood pressure 50 points and he had his blood work done to reduce. So he had his blood pressure medicine reduced in half and was getting blood work done to see if they could take him off the cholesterol meds. And he saw it. He saw how food could be so healing and could help him wean off these meds that he had been on for a long time. And that was his goal, was to like ultimately get off these meds. Cause I don't think anybody loves starting their day with like a cocktail of medicine, especially when they're caused by poor diet. And so anyways, I shared all these videos on the internet. Everybody loved dad. They called him like TikTok rock star, TikTok's favorite dad. It was so awesome.
Aw.
And one of the things dad had been experiencing in his poor health was chest pains. And it was during the pandemic too, so we couldn't go with him to his appointments. And I think like a culmination of lots of things, but he had never had an ultrasound done on his chest. And so dad had ultimately had a aortic aneurysm in his heart, and it had ruptured shortly after we had done Veganuary. And so he was still on all his meds and everything too. But and unfortunately it was like a thing that it was probably going to happen anyways.
Mhm.
We just didn't know.
Mhm.
We didn't know. We didn't see it coming, and we
Mm.
didn't expect it. And so it took his life. And so that was March 2022.
Yeah, I'm
And so
sorry.
it's okay. I mean, I'm actually like in an okay place with it right now. I have good days, bad days.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
but I think as with anyone, when you lose your parent to someone when it feels like it could have been, I mean, an aneurysm is an aneurysm, but watching dad struggle for so long with health related diseases or diet related diseases, I was like, where was this like encouragement and him being championed and like loved on like we did for 30 days? Like, why isn't
Yep.
that translated in the doctor's office?
Mm.
Like, why didn't the doctor like hire somebody to help my dad meal prep, or like where was the checking
Yep.
in on him? And where was it like 30 years ago instead of like now, at 67?
Yeah.
And so a lot of anger. I think grief makes you feel
Oof.
everything, but a lot of anger at the beginning. And anyways, I reached a point where I was sitting on all this footage. I have all these short form videos of my dad. And I was like, I want to make a film because I know that my dad helped so many people online. And I know that we've like just scratched the surface. And I have obviously a bunch of footage that didn't make it into these like 30-second clips. So this story of honoring my dad and his journey of wanting to get off medicine and how he was able to wean off meds in 30 days by eating plant-based, and just like honoring his legacy of he did it, he wanted to do it and he did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
That's so beautiful. And you're right to be like, it's understandable to be upset. And I had a similar feeling in my own health journey, which luckily was in my 20s and I was able to figure out. But it's like, why aren't these conversations being had in the doctor's office?
Right.
Why, maybe it's not their responsibility to help us carry them out, but maybe it is. But why isn't there more of a conversation or, hey, I want you to try doing this with your diet for 30 days. And if that doesn't work, we will look at
Right.
what meds we want to put you on.
Right.
The
I mean,
conversation and empowering people. I've always, and Maddie and I have talked about this a ton, and it's been a big motivator for me personally, is like the lack of understanding people have in how impactful eating is and how the food they put in their mouth is literally one of the most important decisions,
Yeah.
if not the most important decision that they make every day. And we are just so disconnected from that. And it feels like so much work. And,
Yeah.
people are so reluctant to give up these things that they love so much, like the sodas and the burgers because they just love them. But it's like, but don't you love your life? Don't you, don't.
fully.
And I think people just don't fully understand that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it parallels a lot of the things you see in the climate conversations, is like, it's this like, when you have the information, it's like, you want to shake people. And it's like, but wait, like, how do you not understand that you have to do this? Like you
Yeah.
need to make these changes, and how much better life is on the other side.
Bingo. Yeah. What's possible for sure.
Yeah.
It's so good just sharing this, Lauren, because I mean, at 25 years old, I got told I had high cholesterol. Literally, my doctor was like, this is alarmingly high for a 25-year-old. And she was like, I think you've just like, we might have to put you on medication. And I was like, there is no way I'm going on cholesterol medication at 25 years old. And I took my health into my own hands. And that, like, shortly after, I had moved to LA, and also when I was getting into the food and beverage industry and working with Brooke, and I started to learn so much about food, what's truly in our food, how processed it can be, etc. I went plant-based during this time, and I went in back to get tested a year later, and they were like, oh yeah, your cholesterol's fine at normal levels. And I was like,
Amazing.
there you go. And similar story with my mum. I told her to watch What the Health, or one of
Yeah.
those documentaries at the time, because she was like, why are you going plant-based, Maddie? You won't be able to get your protein. And she watched it, and afterwards literally calls me straight away, and she's like, Richard and I are going plant-based. And that was 7 years ago. And mum has cut her cholesterol medicine back significantly since going plant-based as well.
It's amazing.
And so that message, it's like, what can you do? What are you capable of?
Yeah.
With food, transforming your food.
I think the thing I felt with Dad is like yes, there's an element of responsibility. Like it ultimately had to be Dad's choice, right? Like he could have,
Yeah.
he had to be open-minded and willing to try something new. And for Dad, it was all about cost. Like he had a lot of fears around this being expensive. And so we would go to places like Grocery Outlet, and I would show him side by side how like oat milk, he would put like, he called it Cremora, but like coffee mate in his coffee. And I would go side by side at Grocery Outlet. It'd be like $1.99 for the dairy one and $1.99 for the almond one. And I was like, Dad, same behavior, just like switch the option. And I was like, and then it's a dairy-free option. We're just like same behavior, switching the ingredient, right? And there's still like processed things in this creamer, but it was just making like this. But I showed him it's the same cost. This doesn't have to be something that was his fear, was I can't afford this. I can't afford to eat healthy. And two things. One, there's a brilliant book called How the Other Half Eats. Oh my God. It should be like required for anybody in the like food world. And this researcher went and studied 4 different families who all lived within like 10 miles of each other in the Bay Area. And the wealthiest family was like a tech family. And the poorest family was living below the poverty line. And the mom, I think, was on disability and had two kids. And it just showed you like how within 10-mile radius, how do moms make the purchasing decisions in the home given their income? Like what can they afford to feed their families? And the ultimate conclusion of the book is like, it's not just about food access. Like this is about people not being paid enough. Like if you cannot afford, and just like, what do you do with your time if you're underpaid?
Yeah.
You know? And so Trader Joe's and Whole Foods was like this often place that this wealthier family would go to, and they would have dinner at home all the time. Whereas like going to the food pantry or food bank was where the like low income family would go, and having fried chicken was like something to bring the family joy, like something of pleasure and joy and community. And when I think about my dad too, I was like, Dad leaving the doctor's office being told you have high blood pressure, you have hypertension, you have high cholesterol. He's set up to fail. Like, leave a doctor's office, drive from Long Beach Hospital to my dad's house, and you must pass like 40 Wendy's. How many billboards for like burgers and alcohol and cigarettes? Like, how many ads are you constantly bombarded with all the time that are just like attacking? You're set up to fail. And I'm like, it wasn't completely your fault, Dad. Like if you are cost, if you're underpaid or if you're low income, like you're set up to fail. It's not your fault. These are these like rotten, broken systems that prey on people being sick. It's messed up.
Yeah, it is. It is heartbreaking. And, you know, I think I'd love to give our community, from your perspective, like a takeaway or a couple takeaways on like, you know, we've shared a lot of information on the broken systems and how hard it can be and how people need more access to access to the things, but even just access to the information, which is a really cool time that we're living in, where kind of everyone has access to information if it, you know, if they have a phone. But what's a takeaway or a couple takeaways that you can share with our community to allow them to understand how they can take action or what they should be thinking about or doing?
Yeah. The first thing I recommend is there's this brilliant exercise. Dr. Ayanna Johnson is a marine scientist and wonderful climate activist. And she has this like Venn diagram. It's kind of like Ikigai, the Japanese, when you find like, what am I good at? What's my profession? How can I make money? What brings me joy? It's similar to that. And it's like, what brings me joy? What am I good at? and what does the world need? Like, what does the climate or what does the movement need? And then the sweet spot in the middle. And it's like, that's bingo, that's your sweet spot. And so, like, if y'all's passion is food, like, climate touches food. Food is harvested from the land. Like, of course, there's a huge pillar within regenerative agriculture and agriculture in general when we talk about the climate movement, right? The beautiful thing about climate is it literally touches everything, people and planet, right? That's what this is about.
Yeah.
And so I think first it's finding like what is, if you don't know what it is yet, you're like, I want to participate, I just don't know what it is. Mine was Surfrider Foundation through like ocean conservation, and then like spat into like a million different things. But that was just my entry. But you gotta like, yeah, get curious first and just find what is the overlap. The climate movement needs like anything and everything you've got. You know?
Anything you're willing to give.
Anything
Yeah,
you
but
got.
I love that idea, and looking at your content too, and it started to make me ask questions. And the Surfrider, like the idea of finding an organization that resonates with you, I kind of started to go down the rabbit hole of the Surfrider Foundation, and you know that they have events that people can participate in. It was like, okay, cool. Step one, go to a beach cleanup, see what that feels like.
Yeah.
Start to have conversations in the community, see what's going on, and I love that because that feels fun. It kind of hits on a lot of things that we talked about, you know, getting in a community, taking action, asking questions, educating yourself. And like, it seems kind of fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, grassroots activism is lit. Like, you talk about community dependency or like community resilience, it's going to be grassroots people. These are people who are like showing up to city hall, like city council meetings, being like, we don't want this. We don't want this drilling here. We don't want we want like a stricter single-use plastic ordinance. Like, grassroots activism is awesome. And so that's always typically is my number one. But I think first is finding out like, what are you passionate about and how does the climate movement need it? But secondly is join a community group. And so Surfrider is a grassroots, I mean, it's a national organization with 150 different grassroots local chapters.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It's awesome. But I think that's the second step. So if you're passionate about food, we talked about like joining a community garden and like stewarding the land. That's so badass. Is like saying, I can't fix the massive like industrial agricultural complex, but I can steward this land really, really well. And then from the community, it's like, oh, we're gathering together and we're going to purchase a bigger lot, or we're going to start doing a crop swap, or we're going to start doing backyard renovation so more people can steward the land in their own space, whatever, right? Then it just, you don't know until you're like plugged into the community.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Lauren, are we there? Is it time for our final question?
Yes.
So this is what we ask our guests, and I would love you to share. What is one word or a sentence you would use to describe your past self, your present self, and your future self?
Cool. I think my past self was very curious. And I love that about her.
Ooh.
She's very curious.
That's beautiful. That hits.
Yeah. She got me where I am today, right? She got me this far.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, she's done well.
She's done. And okay, and the second one, this is hard to say, but it was one of my New Year's intentions. This year was to be fucking proud of myself. That was
yes.
New Year's goal. I think women have a really hard time, right? Saying I'm proud of myself. I wrote it on my mirror.
I love that. Yes.
So my present self is I'm proud. I'm proud of myself.
Oh,
even that, I'm like, what freaking guy is going to be like, oh, this girl thinks she's hot shit. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all baked in our minds, right? Like, how dare women be proud of themselves? Anyway.
So much to be proud of.
Future self. I wrote mother, and I don't think just in like the like physical sense of wanting to be a mom, but I think just of being like a caretaker and nurturing and maternal and like Mama Earth. Like, how can I be more, generous and unconditional and reciprocal and like, just so giving without actually. Mother Earth does not give without anything expected. Like, Mother Earth does give with the expectation that we'll reciprocate, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
And so we should.
yeah, and I think my mom too is like such a caretaker and so giving. And she doesn't give with anything in expectation. But maybe because there is this like reciprocal loving relationship, we're always like giving in return. It feels good to love and give back to her because of how everything she gives us. So, I mean, I just want to be my mom someday.
Oh,
She's
Wow,
amazing.
I hope my daughter says that someday.
She
You know,
will,
that's the
bro.
goal.
You
That's
If you have the
that's what
gift
every mom
of
wants.
visiting Lauren's mum's yard, it is,
Yeah.
and it is a dream. Oh my gosh, Lauren, can you just give a little description of your mum's backyard?
Whenever I tell people about before they come to moms, I'm like, just embrace the chaos. Like it is it literally feels like something in like a storybook. She's got this like blue, it's so colorful. She's like a mural as soon as you enter, like me and my sisters. There's like tropical wallpaper and like green walls, and it's so colorful and vibrant and just like an artist, gardener, beekeeper, like cook, chef, love, like house of love. You know, it's just like
Wow.
it's oozing love.
Yes.
And her backyard is like a proper regenerative urban farm. So nothing is in like rows or crops. It is like growing on top of each other, and it's wild, and there's bees and bunnies and turtles, and it's mayhem, but
Banana
it's
trees.
earth. Banana trees and berries and kale and
Okay, now
tree.
I want to be your mom too.
I know.
Oh,
I've
it
always
is
told her, I'm
abundant.
like, I feel like when I cross to the other side, she's gonna be the one who's greeting me, and she would like, I'm gonna be like, oh, you were an angel this whole time, like
Aw.
oh,
for sure. She's like out of this world. I have fears. Like it always comes up around the holidays. I'm like, we're not gonna amount to be half the woman you are. Like, what do we do?
Are you kidding
So
me? You three
yeah.
sisters are amazing, amazing. And I see where you all got your creative spark from, your loving spark. It's
She's our
beautiful.
matriarch for sure.
That's so beautiful. And yeah, I think we all should go hang out with your mom.
Yes.
And two, I hope your mom listens to this, because that is definitely
Aw.
every mom's dream for their daughter to feel that way. And so I'm
Aw.
sure, I'm sure you're an incredible daughter, and it's all reciprocal and very cool. Thank you for sharing some pieces of your story. I feel like we could talk for hours because there's a lot of things we didn't get into, but maybe that means a second appearance down the road.
I'm so grateful for this. I agree. We could chit chat for hours. I loved this.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me.
absolutely.
Aw.
Lauren, could you share where people can find you?
Yes, I'm on Instagram and TikTok and like a wannabe YouTuber, but I go by Relauren, RELAUREN.
And like, warning, once you start following, you're gonna like set aside an hour to just hang out and go down the rabbit hole of Lauren's content, because it's so fun and informative and just inspiring in so many ways. And you are such when you said that you're a theater kid, I was like, absolutely.
There it is.
You are living
so well.
you are living the theater kid dream. Like, I hope
I know.
the little girl inside you is just like, hell yes, we're doing it.
Oh yeah. She
You're
said, I'll
born
take it from the
for
top.
it.
One more time.
Yeah.
I'll take it from the top. But y'all, it's like so embarrassing because it's literally me alone in my house with my little camera. And I'm like, okay, one more take. Let's try that
So
again.
good.
I'm like,
I can see it. I can go watch it for hours. It is my most watched Instagram by far. So
hype
good.
woman. This is what I'm saying, Mads. You're everybody's hype woman.
Girl,
Well,
you deserve it.
love it. Thank you again, Lauren. If you enjoyed this episode, if you got something out of it, please rate and review, and definitely share this with a friend. That's like the perfect first step to creating a community around these conversations. Start the conversation with the people closest to you. I think this could be a really fun way to do that. So thank you all for being here with us, and thank you again, Lauren. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was an incredible conversation. We went a lot of places, and felt, I know Maddie and I both walked away feeling really inspired, you can follow Lauren on Instagram and TikTok at ReLauren for more inspiration and for some really great storytelling. Join us on Instagram and TikTok. We don't know what we're doing on TikTok, so maybe just hang out on Instagram at Expanders Club. And of course, follow us, rate us, review us on your listening platform of choice, including YouTube. And if you found this episode interesting, please share with a friend.
Thank you, guys. We loved that episode. Lauren, you're inspirational. And actually, we have signed up to a beach cleanup by Surfrider on February Sunday, the 25th.
Woohoo.
If you're in LA, I think they're meeting down at Manhattan Beach. So you guys come join us. We're going to get a gang together and clean up the beach, especially after all these storms.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes, but the foundation is Surfrider. You have to sign up through them. We'll be there, and we would love to see your faces and clean up some trash.
Do what we do best. Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.